Hello and welcome to another video from Napoleonic PC Wargamers, and looking at the John Tiller system for the Age of Napoleon and Wars in the Age of Napoleon. Carrying on from my series then, when I did play through against the AI, I did mention that I will now be playing, or my next videos will be playing against a human opponent, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. I've got a play by email game just started against a friend of mine. He's an old chap, he's retired, so he's got a lot of time in his hands, as do I at the minute with lockdown, or the end of lockdown. And it's going to be a progressive thing, it's going to be a gradual thing, so I'm going to make a video series now, and a PBM game against a human opponent. Now this guy, he does know what he's talking about. He's an ex-veteran, he served in the military, as I said, he's retired. World War II is his thing, but lately he has been getting into Napoleonics, and he's bought some titles, including Eylau Freeland, in the recent sale. He wanted to play Waterloo, but if I'm honest, I'm pretty sick to death of Waterloo, played it to death, and one of the titles I bought was also Eylau, and it's always been a battle that I've wanted to play out, because it's a large scale, as you can see here, 80 odd turns this one, and there's a lot of cavalry involved, and I think it's going to be a good battle to play out. He was determined to defend. That was one choice I didn't get a matter in, so therefore I had to take the French. He wanted to be the Allies as well. One of the things when you play these old battles or a historical battle is that you have the benefit of hindsight. You know what happens on the day, so you can be tempted, especially against the AI, to not repeat the mistakes of the commander on the day. In this case, we've got Napoleon. I didn't really want to mess around. We had a look at all the scenarios available with Eylau, and we found one, or I found one, a bonus scenario that is an 80 turn one, and it's called 3 Armies at Eylau. Basically, the Battle of Eylau is back in 1807. Austerlitz has already happened. He's beat the Prussians, and he's advancing on the Russians, pushing them back, and it was a 2-day battle in what is Poland now, but East Prussia at the time. And during the first day of the battle, the French, as you can see here, were in Eylau. The French actually had to fight for Eylau, and the Russians withdrew during the night onto the second day. Because it's a historical, it looks like that's already happened in this case, and the Russians are, I assume, up here somewhere. Now, as I said, the name of the battle is 3 Armies. Therefore, the other thing that's happened is the Prussians, who arrived late on the second day, are already somewhere on the field. I would have thought they've got Schmorditten and Althoff, so they're probably up there somewhere. I also have my reinforcements on the field, so Ney and Soult are here somewhere. Is that Ney? No. So he'll be there somewhere. Anyway, I've got my reinforcements. So everybody that was involved in the battle is already on the field, so reinforcements aren't going to come out. As you can see, it is during winter, so that's just for a little bit of variation to look at a nice white screen for 80 odd turns. And as I said, it's an 80 turn battle, so I will pre-warn you now, it's not like the Talavera battle that I had, where you're going to see every single last little move I make. This is very much going to be an abridged series of videos, where I'm going to show you highlights. I'll go through the initial planning, we're going to have a plan in place, and justify my planning and see what happens. But when I start to put out skirmisher lines, when I start to move my troops around, maneuver my troops around, if nothing's happening, there's no point in videoing it. So I'll always jump in when something exciting happens, and then I'll get you back in the video, and you won't miss out on anything. It makes it a bit quicker for me, and it makes it a bit quicker for you guys as well. Now, I have mentioned before, playing by email against a human opponent, this game, or all of the John Tiller games, come into their own. It's the next level. The challenge is there. AI, always something to shoot at, something to shoot back at you, but playing against a human opponent, and a human opponent that is pretty savvy. I'm hoping he's pretty savvy. He's played a few rounds of other JTS Napoleonic games as well, and he's well read as well, so I'm expecting quite a challenge. And we got parity on the day. Number-wise, the real battle was inconclusive. Nobody actually won. Russians left the field, so sort of a tactical French victory, but not an outright winner. He didn't destroy the Russian and the Prussians. And the other little thing is, I should say, is that the Russians, wherever they are, they have limited ammo in this. Don't know how much they've got, how limited it is. The Prussians were meant to resupply them, but in the blurb for the mission, the scenario, it said the Russians do have limited ammo supply because the Prussians didn't resupply them, so they've got to be savvy with it. Excuse me. In real life, on the second day, Napoleon pushed forward some troops up to what I assume is this sort of high ground here, excuse me, and they got lost in the fog. And they got massacred. About 5,000 were shot to pieces by the Russian artillery. And the French confused them for a Russian attack and shot them from behind as well. So they were in just a crossfire of two massed artillery batteries and got cut to pieces. Again, on the right-hand side in real life, there was a lot of fighting on the right-hand side. French reinforcements came in along this road, and the Prussians came across the field here, and there was a lot of fighting. So there wasn't much on the left. So I'm going to have to wait and see. And another thing with playing by email is I can't recommend it highly enough. I've met some, I'd like to think, good friends actually through play by email, because in between turns, when something happens, you invariably in your email start talking, and you get a dialogue going, and you start discussing things and realise that sometimes the game, for everything it gets right, and it can be quite an accurate depiction, it is an accurate depiction to a certain extent, of Napoleonic warfare of the time. There are a couple of little things you think, well, they could do that better, or I don't agree with that. Nothing's perfect, it's no big issue, so we may introduce some house rules. And those that play with me know about the house rules we've been developing. A couple of us have been developing over the course of the last few months, just to make the game, in our opinion, a little bit more realistic. Now, we don't force these house rules on anyone. It's not to make it harder. It's not to take away any fun element, but it's just to do with limitations, let's say, of the game's engine. Or the designer has a different thought of a scenario, and it's no biggie. History is all subjective. We think differently, the designer thought differently, so it's no biggie. And a couple of the little house rules, we're not going to go into them in any depth, that we have agreed to play on, and it's not in-depth house rules. One is for cavalry. For various reasons, we don't think that there should be a lot of cavalry in one hex, and this hex is representing 100 meters. And we say there's a maximum limitation of cavalry in one hex of 300. There is a 5% allowance to counter for any uneven squadrons, so that will take it up to 315, but no more than 315 will be in one hex. We also have to operate them all in squadrons, but it looks to be everyone's pretty much squadron sized anyway, so we don't have to mess around and break all our cavalry down. Another one is if a unit is disordered, they cannot attack unless they have a leader in the, or they cannot melee unless they have a leader in the stack with them. If you've got a ragtag bunch of disordered troops and things like that, including cavalry, they're not going to be able to attack. Now, this is using I'm not going to say an old engine, but it hasn't got the latest no detached melee rules in there. And we have to have a leader, or a relevant leader, within command range for you to actually press home and attack, including a melee and a cavalry charge as well. We do have some rules for artillery, but we're not playing with them, to do with supply. Remember, artillery has one massive stockpile that just magically gets distributed amongst all the guns on the field. So I tend to normally, not in this scenario, but normally play against my opponents, and we've got to have supply carts near artillery, just to simulate, it doesn't have any effect, but just to simulate that artillery must actually be supplied. It didn't have everything in case on, or along with it. What else we got? Leaders have to be in proximity of their units for them to attack, as I've said. And I can't remember what we've actually agreed to now. I'll have to check the email. But it's not a full set of house rules. It's just small little things just to make the battle, or try to make the battle, a little bit more realistic. So as always, I'm going to come up here and see who have I actually got to play with. Grand Army, got about 80,000 troops. Got the Guard is there. We've got a lot of Guard cavalry. Now, Eylau is famous for one of the most famous cavalry charges, certainly of the Napoleonic Wars, and you could argue of all time, when Murat took the heavy cavalry over to rescue the infantry in 2 waves. The cavalry got cut off, and then the Guard cavalry had a second charge and basically saved the day. There's some lovely paintings when the hussars were charging across the snow. So just having a look there. So we don't have a lot of guns. He's the order of battle, as with all John Tiller games, will be very, very accurate. And I know from just sort of reading that the Russians had double the guns that we have. I can't remember, is it 400 against 200, something like that. So the Russians somewhere are going to have an awful lot of large artillery batteries, which are going to be an absolute nightmare to deal with. So a front-on assault, I can tell you now, is out of the question, unless I see an opportunity later breaking a line somewhere. Other than that, that is not my initial plan. We do have lots and lots of cavalry. We've got lots of heavy cavalry, guard cavalry there. Look at that, grenadier or cheval, loads of them. Dragoons. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to probably sign off for now. I'm going to have a look at my avenues of approach, have just basically survey the battlefield. I will come back, and then when I come back I will tell you what I found, make an appraisal of the battlefield, and then have a look at my units, and then try to formulate a plan and get a plan in place of how I'm actually going to try and, I'm going to say win, but not lose this battle. So, the first thing I did then when I left you is I had a look at all my units, and said I had an awful lot of cavalry. I went through everything one by one. And the first thing you probably noticed that I haven't mentioned yet is that there is a lot of fixed units. If we come up here, go out on the map, everything is fixed. Okay, we've got a random marine unit, and the commanders, Napoleon himself isn't fixed. And then we've got this division down here, the 3rd Cavalry Division down, or the Cavalry Division down here. They're not fixed either. If we come up here and have a look at units and have a look at scheduled, beg your pardon, if we have a look at released, or releases, we can see 6:30, a lot of people come available. So that's what, 3 turns, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, and then by 8 o'clock everybody will be released. No big issue, not too worried about it. It's a little bit annoying. The first turns are going to be sort of slow and steady, just move a couple of units around, nothing major. And we're going to see here that our visibility down the bottom is only 2 hexes. We've got dawn, it's light snow, and we can have a look at the weather forecast as well. Info weather forecast, next turn, change to, so it's going to stay the same. Okay, and visibility wise, if we come up to parameter data, where is it? Down here. Okay, light snow, artillery works at 75, 50%, visibility full hex. Okay, so it will start to improve slowly but surely. So I can only see 2 hexes, but the good news is that he can only also see 2 hexes wherever he is. Now he's got a lot of victory locations on the map.